Well, through 5 games, you're at 5-0, which is as good as you can be through 5 games. But there's still a lot that you guys talk about, both offensively and defensively, in terms of growing. How exciting is it to be at 5-0 and know there's still a lot of things to work on?
I think obviously you always want to be undefeated, but it's so early in the season, and I don't think you really know who anybody is yet, right? There's sleepers. There's great teams that aren't quite great as you thought. There's teams that should be solid that are, I think they're pretty good, right? So that's the fun of the non-conference. And I think the season is just such a journey. I feel like that's the challenge. You get to that, and then everybody gets a lot of hype, and then how do you really manage that? I just, I think my favorite part about the team is they just come to work every day trying to get better, and I think that's what's fun. I mean, really trying to get better. I don't think they're really caught up in we're undefeated, how good are we? They just really like playing together, and that's my favorite part, is that they like playing together, and then I think you have a shot to be pretty successful. I mean, look, our conference, how many teams are in the top 5? How many teams are in the top 10? So I'm fully aware what's going to be coming down. And we're playing a good a lot of international kids on Sunday, which is a whole different style of basketball. And then Cancun, and then you got Tennessee, and we got Iowa State. So I'm fully aware that this is a nice start, but it's not like we're playing a Big Ten schedule yet. But I'm thrilled with where we are.
And you could get a team that kind of have that tunnel vision, especially going through the non-conference when the schedule's a little erratic sometimes, especially with a young team or new team.
Mm-hmm.
How much can that kind of accelerate everything?
Yeah, I think it can help you. I've just been doing this a really long time, that I think just keeping them in the middle and enjoying the journey, because I know the Ohio States, right, and the UCLAs and the Tennessee names, and how that rivalry feels with Iowa State, and that's the fun and challenging part, is you never know with that inexperience how they're going to react to it, right? And I've really loved how they've met the moment in Charlotte, and then met the moment at the Pentagon, but then that was kind of like a really cool home game, right? But yet they still were really embracing it, and grateful for that I think platform. So I'm hopeful that this confidence we're getting when we really get to the teams that are going to throw a lot at you with athleticism, size, skill, pressure, complicated offenses with all the things they throw at you. I think our vets know that you don't get to the promised land without a pretty steep climb, but no one's shying away from it. But I don't think anybody's focused on that part of it yet. And I know it sounds cliche, but I think they're really just doing a pretty good job turning that page to the next scouting report. And I think they're not getting too caught up in what that means, 5-0, and if we've done it or not doing it. They just know that 5-0 feels a lot better than 4-1, right?
How are things standing with both Guyton and Johnson as far as?
Guyton is definitely, I feel like we get another, if I remember correctly, another step today. And I really love, I'm so grateful for our medical team, and from our orthopedic surgeon. Brian Wolf is so good, all the way down to our athletic training staff. The pace at which we're going, we are able to go, especially now, just because we have some good depth. We didn't need to rush anything. But I think she gets another step today. She's been looking good in the half-court stuff. So I really am hopeful that we could get her in game action in Cancun. She just adds another fun element. She's quick and fast. She also loves defense, and that's really fun. She has from the very beginning. And she comes by the point guard skills, honestly. Her mother was she was a WNBA player, all Brazilian, and her dad, of course, played at Indiana in the pros. So I'm pretty excited to get her back. And Kenesa's a little bit slower in her rehab. I think she did it later. I can't remember right now. But for sure, we're going to get Guyton back.
I wanted to ask about Hannah Stolke a little bit, obviously playing not necessarily a new position, but a new position as in what she was doing last year. The numbers are pretty good still. I mean, averaging like 15 points, 8 rebounds, but it still seems like maybe there's a couple shots here and there that she'd like to have back, a couple turnovers. Just what have you seen from her so far, and what would you like to see going forward?
Well, I think what we're seeing is she didn't take a rep from the day after the championship game until game rep wasn't until the 3rd week of September. And I think that's the thing. You miss all the, when the coaches aren't in the gym, you miss all those runs, in pickup games. And she missed all those reps with player development of really banging through a finish and looking at the game through totally a different lens. When you're playing in our system, in some systems, the 4 and the 5 do the same things. In our system, the 4 and the 5 are completely different in some ways. It's a 4 out, 1 in. So now she's playing with the guard mentality and having to look and read and make the decisions. But she's still playing both, right? Sometimes we slide her at the 5. So I would say her comfortability level is at the true 5, but her skills can match to face. So when she's making, some of those, she makes a turnover here or there, or she doesn't hit the finish, that was my biggest concern, is just missing all those reps. But with that being said, even with what she's doing, I mean, everybody would take her on that roster. So I'm really happy that it's it's where it is. And I think the more we just kind of keep going and getting everybody kind of back in that more game mode, and now Sid's getting back, I'm hopeful. But that's a lot of reps to miss. So the proof will be in the pudding when we get into the thick of the Big Ten season and at the end of the year, and we'll see how important all those reps were to miss.
What kind of challenges does Washington State present? I mean, obviously, you look at the roster, they got 10 kids from all over the world.
And they play them. They don't always push the ball right now. What I've seen, like a real fast push, like we like to get up and down the floor, but they do a lot of nice action. They do a lot of ball screening. They have some, good shooters, what I call some Euro ball screens. They can pass and flip it back to a shooter. They have a couple traditional bigs, but then they have a player, I want to make sure I have her name right, number 1, Tara Wallach. And she's kind of like a stretch forward, plays a little bit like Hannah. They have a lot of nice pieces. I think they're a really good basketball team. They've been in the Pac-12. I think when they win that Pac-12 championship the year before, And Cammie Etheridge, she was a fantastic All-American player. She was at Kansas State with Deb Patterson when they had these amazing years there. She's a great coach. So I'm very prepared for a great game. But they just do actions that are a little bit more sophisticated, and you got to be ready to handle them. The 1 through 4s, they're different, a little bit more, not exactly like Drake, but they can do some similar actions where you have to, your 4s aren't necessarily handling that on a daily basis, but they have that European feel. You know what that is? It's just not quite what you're used to, but you're still testing your principles.
Taylor McCabe was in here last availability talking about defense and how something that happened in the game maybe would have been just kind of briefly mentioned in the past, and everybody has kind of talked about the added defensive importance. I guess, what does that exactly look like? Is it more film work? Is it just kind of focus? What is that?
It's just a little bit more film work, but I think we've always pointed out the defense. We've just been a juggernaut on offense. We've just been able to go and fly down the floor, and you've had a lot of options, right? Always, and you have one really special option. So now we know we don't always have the luxury. I think we can. What's kind of fun, I think, for the fans and for us too, you never know what that offensive production is going to be. You want to have a couple of key cogs, but who's that 3rd and 4th kid? And I think we've seen through this young season already, and Tegan's had some really nice moments, right? Taylor McCabe has had some hot moments. Addison O'Grady has been becoming a solid. So with defensively, when we have our goals that we're focusing on, it's in practice every day that we're trying to also reach those goals, right? To get some stops in a row, celebrate that, talk about why it didn't go well. So we're maybe giving it more equal opportunity, and it feels like you're pointing it out a little bit more. I just feel like part of it is more eyes and emphasis, but they also understand they're competitive. And so we spelled it out and said, this is where we think we can improve. And I think everybody, we were being asked, how can you be a little bit different? And we thought we could be a little bit different because naturally we had some better defenders. Lucy Olson coming in, great scorer, but she's a pretty good defender, right? So it's just more of an emphasis, and every day I give it a lot of time, right? A little bit more than probably a 6-on-6, person would, right? I always spent my time on the other part of the ball, so I think that's it. And just trying to celebrate when we do that well. And I think that's long been an issue, and I think any coach will tell you, we like to celebrate the threes and the things that look fancy, but you don't always get as fired up when you get a stop. So we're trying to get as fired up as when we get a stop.
How neat was it? I mean, it was just one moment in 40 minutes the other day, but I think Olsen got the ball stripped from her, and girl was going down, and she and Feuerbach both, both got their hands on the ball, went off the other kid's knee. I mean, just stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that was, thanks for mentioning, I thought that play really was a nice reflection of, I think, who I see they are every day. There was a turnover, there wasn't a head drop exactly, right? It was just a turn, sprint, as fast as you can. And I think the amount of ground that Kylie overcame, right? And then she got a piece of it. They were both running beside her. And I think that's just an intangible that makes this team, really enjoyable. And I think that's a great example is, they didn't give up on the play, and they knew that didn't go so well offensively, but man, if I work really hard, maybe I got a shot to still make it defensively. And I thought that was a great play. In fact, we're going to show that today because we didn't have practice yesterday. So we're definitely going to highlight that.
I wanted to ask about Kylie. She looks much more aggressive, confident on the offensive end. She's not afraid to shoot the three. It just hasn't necessarily been going in the last couple of games. What do you feel like she needs to do to get a little bit more consistency?
I think that's the $1 million question. I mean, these kids are in the gym a lot. I remember when I was a young coach, you're like, you need to get in the gym, right? These guys, I have to worry about their load, right? Because they're trying to fix it so much. But now we have all these fancy things. They wear things in their athletic bra. They can see your jumping load and running, and they're just hard workers. So, I try to tell them to shoot a few shots in your mind, right? But I just think the reps, and sometimes it just has to go through a little bit consistently. I think Kylie probably is putting, a senior finally getting your shot. I tell her, hey, you've done it. You've made it back, from that injury and so forth. So I just think with a lot of them, it's just that more mental. And I'm hopeful that the more we just stay chill and keep running the sets when that plays for them, is eventually it'll just be a little ease. Because mechanically, there's not too much wrong when we watched it. Just, at this point, you can't, maybe their elbows out, right? But through the summer, it's been so pretty. So I think it's part of the journey where, you either got to figure it out and release it, and the shot's got to go in. Because pretty soon we're gonna need to have some consistency, and it can't just be one kid that's hot that night, or just can't be the inside carrying us. So I feel like it's mental, because those kids are in the gym all the time, and sometimes we got to just be like, no, gym's locked tonight.